Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villere's Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villere's provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villere's Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969.
Dave Meade Insurance Agency, 504-556-0809 or davemeadeINSagency.com.
For over 48 years, Southern Tires and Auto Repair has provided services across the New Orleans metro area. Southern Tires offers a range of tires for all vehicles and ATVs. We also have a full suite of auto repair options, including brake repair, rim repair, custom exhaust, steering and suspension, and so much more. Southern Tires and Auto Repair, 2550 Hickory Avenue in Metairie.
Cnc Drugs is a family-owned pharmacy that's been serving Southeast Louisiana for over 50 years. Whether you need help taking care of an elderly family member, a growing child, or even a pet, Cnc provides patient-centered care for your entire family. Cnc Drugs, large enough to serve you, small enough to know you. Locations in Mandeville and Araby.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we cover all the home teams, the New Orleans Saints, also the LSU Tigers, the Tulane Green Wave, big win for them this past weekend. And of course, we'll talk about the Pelicans coaching search, all that coming up here on the program. And to break it down for us, one of the best we have out here right now in the city, sports director from Fox 8. I could rarely get him on the program. We were live at 6. Now that we're in the afternoons because of my time change with the radio show, I get to bring on my good friend Juan Kincaid. Juan, how are you?
Nice to be here for the first time in this studio.
Right, in this studio.
I love
That's
it.
right.
Yeah.
It's been difficult. I mean, again, people ask all the time, can you get Juan on? Because I get all the Fox 8 guys on, and I tell them, Juan's on TV at 6 o'clock.
He's only 2 minutes down the road
right,
now, though, so that will help. Yeah.
Right, we're going live at 6, you're getting off TV at 6, so exactly. It was very, very difficult, but I'm glad to have you. And look, you guys are doing a great job over at Fox 8. Tell us about all the great programming. Literally, again, if you're a sports fanatic or you're a Saints fan, high school, doesn't matter, there's programming almost every single night on Fox 8.
There's only 2 nights a week where we don't have a specialty show about something. Monday, of course, we got Deuce McAllister and the Black and Gold Review. Tuesday, we do overtime with all the other 3 sports guys sitting around the campfire talking about sports. And Wednesday, we start previewing on Game Plan. Friday, Fox 8 Football Friday starts this week with the first week of high school football finally kicking off and the final play on Sunday. Then we have Tailgate Sunday morning, a live hour-long edition of that. So there's only 2 days where we take a breath, take a pause, and don't have an extra show to do, but it's the best time of the year. We want to talk about sports. We want to be in the moment now, which we are. So it's different because of COVID, but our shows haven't changed and our focus hasn't changed.
I'm telling you, for somebody that wants to find out what's going on locally sports, you got to tune in each and every day at Fox 8. They got something. My DVR is set, but people know that for years and years now. Saints lose to the Green Bay Packers 37-30. Last week it was all about Drew Brees, arm strength, ability to get the ball downfield. Has he fallen off the cliff in terms of his ability? Look, I talked about on this show, on the radio show, I was more concerned with 2 things. Number one, he was uncomfortable in the pocket. You could see he wasn't the normal Brees where he would step up in the pocket, go through his progressions. There was a little bit of maybe uncertainty with the offensive line. And then the other part of it, and I spoke to, again, your colleague over at Fox 8, Sean Fazan, because again, he's been at the games and he can see what's going on live, and of course he goes through the all 22. Are the receivers getting the separation? Is this a timing offense with, again, so many changes and Michael Thomas out? What's happening there? So I thought it was twofold in terms of, again, the struggles that Brees was having in terms of the beginning of the season. But last week, 29 for 36, 288, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and look. The deep ball, look, he's a dink and dunker now. And they haven't had the deep ball for years, and I don't see that really changing. Now, maybe you'll start to see him air it out a little bit more once Michael Thomas comes back. But Alvin Kamara was spectacular, and I think all this conjecture about whether Breeze can still play still play today, I think is a little bit overblown. I'd love to get your take.
I mean, let's start at the end there.
Right.
I mean, Drew Brees is still one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the league, I believe. There are very few quarterbacks, if any, that are as accurate with the football as he is. I mean, would you rather have Jamarcus Russell, who can sling it 70 yards, but you don't know if it's going to land in the basket of the player?
Yes.
Or would you rather have Drew Brees, who can get you 10 to 20 yards per throw, and it's right on target, on time, almost every time? That last part, being on time every time, is the part we're not seeing right now in these first 3 weeks, whatever the reason is. He's hitching sometimes. He's not feeling confident in the guy he's throwing the ball to. Maybe he sees something that we don't see. And again, Sean's been at the games, no one else really has. And what he's told me is that, and Deuce McAllister told me this as well, guys aren't getting open.
Right.
You know, we want to throw the ball deep. We want to see the big play.
Right.
I get it. But at the expense of turning the ball over, you don't really want that.
Right.
And so Drew is checking the ball down to what is his best option. Last weekend it was Alvin Kamara. That was the best option that he has right now.
No doubt.
Is that performance sustainable? I don't think it is. But Kamara, in the neighborhood of 15 to 20 touches a game, combination of passing and running, that's okay. And he's going to be more positive than he is going to be negative.
Yes.
But someone else has to be able to step up in this offense to help it move down the field. Not having Jared Cook for the second half of the game against Green Bay really hurt them.
Yes.
Because all of a sudden, your only option is Kamara, Traquan Smith, whoever else you're throwing the ball to, Emmanuel Sanders. You have less options there. And obviously, Michael Thomas is out. Michael Thomas's return will help immensely because all of a sudden, opposing teams will have to bracket him.
Yes.
Because they know that's going to be Drew's first option. So Traquan Smith can have a chance to get open one-on-one. Emmanuel Sanders should start to fill the void and start to pick up the pace a little bit in the offense. Jared Cook, he was on injury reserve yesterday. I mean, he was injured yesterday at practice. If he comes back, we'll see. Then he becomes another weapon that gets the benefits from Michael Thomas being on the field. So I think, is it overblown right now about where Drew Brees is as a quarterback? Absolutely. He didn't turn the ball over last week. Let's not forget about that. And the numbers were still pretty good, and they still had a chance to win that game. They should have probably won that game.
Well, to your point, I think it's a great point that you're making right now, because I think that is what people forget. There was a time when Brees was a gunslinger.
Yeah.
When Brees was looking to get the ball,
fit it in.
There's no doubt. There were a couple years ago. He decided to change that, and you've seen the progressions in the lack of interceptions that he's throwing now. He is not willing to be able to try to maybe get a gash play. And maybe take a chance on throwing an interception, turning the ball over, rather than being in a situation where if he's got to take the check down, he'll take the check down. Perfect example. You guys had, I think, on your game plan show this week. There was a play where Harris is going deep. He's looking like he's breaking open, but Brees checks down to Alvin Kamara. A trust factor. Do I trust Harris at this point in his career to be there, to fight for the ball, to get the ball? I'll take the easy play and go down to Kamara. Is it going to work always? No. Eventually you're going to have to test it and prove to teams you can throw deep. But right now teams are playing them shallow. Okay? So it is what it is. I agree with you. Michael Thomas comes back. It's a whole different dichotomy of this offense.
I'm going to stop you for a second because one thing that's not correct that you said, they are not playing him shallow. Now, the back bubble, the back end of the defense, they're playing back, and they're keeping the deep ball. This is what I've been told by Deuce McAllister and Sean, is that teams are playing soft zones. They're playing deep zones. So they're saying, you're not going to beat us over the top. And where I would agree with you is that if Harris is making that deep run, Drew doesn't have the strongest of arms. This is not
Brees of 5 or 10 years ago, right?
So if that ball's underthrown the slightest bit, it's picked off because Harris is not going to win a jump ball with anybody. I'm not sure Traquan Smith will win a jump ball with anybody. So you have to be smarter. And he is not what Brett Favre was when Brett Favre was this age. Brett would still try to get it in a pinhole, and most times he would do it. Sometimes he wouldn't. Think Tracy Porter. So I just think that, you have to be smart with the football right now. And I would love to see not so much them throwing the ball deep, test it every now and then, once or twice a game, but that 10 to 25 yard range from the line of scrimmage, that throw, that's the one I want to see, that second level throw. I want to start seeing more of that to show that they can actually do that. That will get the entire defense to take notice and back up a little bit.
And I think that'll happen once Michael Thomas comes back. You'll start to see more openings, whether it's a zone or man-to-man, because as you mentioned, there's going to be extra attention there. Then you have Alvin Kamara coming out the backfield. Hopefully, again, you get a guy like Cook back. But no matter what, the best friend of Drew Brees is the running game. And if I got one criticism of Sean Payton, it's been, it really is. I mean, you have over 100 yards rushing in the first half, and with Kamara and also Murray, who's running physical, and yet you end up with 122 yards rushing at the end of the game. Yeah. You know, again, that to me is unconscionable on the part of the coaching staff. You know, again, in a game where you know you're going against a high-powered offense, you can keep the ball on the ground, hold on to the time of possession. The Vegas Raiders did it to you the week before, okay? But yet, again, they refuse to do that, want to go back to the passing game and abandon the run. And look, I think to be successful this season, especially Drew Brees, as he is aging, you've got to be able to establish that run and stay with the run.
No, I would agree. And, you know, the fumble by Taysom, the option, whatever you want to call it.
Read option.
Sean Payton said that we were basically about to get into that point where we were going to start running the ball. I'd like to believe that's what they're going to do because, I mean, Murray has been fantastic this year.
Has.
He's been given more opportunity, more touches in the offense. I think they should have ran him even more against the Raiders.
I agree.
That's his old team. I think Jared Cook should have been looked at more in that game. That was his old team. You know, those two guys want to have big games against the teams that let them go or didn't want them anymore. But we've been saying this for years about Sean Payton.
Right.
You got good running backs, run the ball more. Right. He always talks about wanting to have balance, and yet when you look at the final score sheet, most times it's 1/3 run, 2/3 pass. That's just the way this offense is. As Drew has gotten older, they've had to rely a little bit more on the running game, and they've got a good running game if they would use it even more. I'd like to see them use it more.
The only game they won this year against Tampa Bay, 34 runs, 31 passes. Okay? And look, that's not fool's gold here. You got to run the football, and especially now with a guy like, it made no sense with a guy like Michael Thomas out, not to run the football. To your point about Taysom Hill, look, I've gotten used to Taysom Hill now. I'm not one of these guys that believe that Taysom Hill is the savior. He's going to be the heir apparent here. You know, I mean, look, we'll see. I know the NFL is going to more of a mobile quarterback. He's got to be able to prove he can throw the football. But I will say on these read options, more often than not, he's making the wrong read. In other words, he believes it's his time to be able to have the ball and to be able to run with it. And I think teams are king on that. That fumble was a byproduct of him not handing the ball off on what the proper read was. And look, the coach has got to get with him. He has been a weapon for this team, and you can utilize him all over the field. Matter of fact, I was surprised against Vegas. They didn't utilize him in the second half. After the first half, that little dive play by the in the red zone, they really didn't utilize him. They've got to utilize him in spots, but at the same time, he's got to be smart enough to realize what's going on with the defense and take what the defense gives him.
When you go back to when he first started doing this whole read option and everything a couple years ago, really last year, that he was keeping the ball more than he was handing it to Alvin. We're all up in the top going like, give the ball away. Let Alvin do what he does best, you know, and I think he's reverted back to that in this early part of the season. I'm not going to put it all on him, though, because I think Sean Payton has been part to blame for all this, and he will tell you he has not been the best play caller in his first 2-3 weeks of the season. He has struggled with the play calling. Taysom was hardly used at all in the Vegas game, used a little bit more in the last game against the Packers, but He's been Payton has been struggling a little bit to kind of get all of his weapons involved and get into a bit of a rhythm. I think that will pick up, but I think if he starts to rely a little bit more on the running game, that will help him.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, you know, look, it's anti what we've seen with that offense with Brees and Payton, but I think at some point you've got to be able to utilize one of the strengths of your team, and that's running the ball. And right now, I don't think there's a better back in the league than what Alvin Kamara's doing right now. No. When you talk about receiving and also running the football, he's back. He's got the glide. You can see he's running effortlessly. Yeah. He's also a guy that is last year. Look, what happened? One hit, he'd go down. Now again, he's able to get those glancing blows. He was terrific. I think you guys had it on one of your shows. 19 touches, 197 yards, 2 touchdowns, and that 52-yard catch and run, which was spectacular.
Yeah, and you know, you look at the stats this year, he's leading the league for a running back in receptions, receiving yards, and touchdowns. He's leading the league right now. He's the most dangerous running back in the game of football right now, and the big reason why is because he's healthy. Credit to the guy, he played pretty much all of last year, and no one knew how banged up he was, but you could see he was not the player yet last year that he is this year so far. It's only a benefit for this football team the way he's playing right now. But again, the question is what he did against the Packers, all those touches, all that production,
Right.
is that sustainable? I don't think it is, because he's going to start taking some hits.
Right.
They've got to find a way to get other guys involved in the offense. It will help, obviously, with Michael Thomas coming back, but you still need guys that can get down the field.
Yes.
They need to start executing the plays to Jared Cook in the seams, those big 15, 20-yard chunk plays. That's why you've got an athletic tight end against those linebackers, which should be an advantage for you. So I think, again, Sean Payton needs to become a better play caller over these next 4, 5, 6, and 7 weeks of the season to get this team past the hump a little bit and get in a bit of a rhythm offensively.
And a more disciplined play caller. And it goes back to something you spoke about and we talked about as the show opened today. This is not a disciplined football team.
No.
It's not. It's not a disciplined football team. You look at it right now, leading the league in penalties. Again, from a technique standpoint, the technique's not there, whether it's the offensive line in terms of holding, especially on the defensive back, on the back end.
Yeah.
They've been horrible. All I heard during training camp was maybe the best secondary we've ever seen as in the history of the Saints, or maybe the history of the Breeze Peyton era. It doesn't look like that right now. Looks like a lot of guys who again are playing lazy football back there and are honestly not reading their keys and are very undisciplined. To the point now, the Saints have a reputation, and once you get a reputation, it's hard to shake that with officials.
They'll start watching it,
There's no doubt.
and the other teams will start realizing, okay, this is what this team likes to do. Let's take advantage of it. You know, we make the mistake every year, and I tell my guys at Fox 8 all the time that we get so hyped up on what we see in training camp,
Fool's gold,
that we forget that they're going against the same offense every day, same plays every day. You have to take everything we see in training camp with a grain of salt, especially this year when we were hardly able to see any of training camp, much less, 15, 20 minutes before the camp it was sent away. You just have to take it with a grain of salt. You go based on what you saw the year before. You go based on the reputation of the players you have in your roster, the veteran experience they have. I think the biggest disappointment for me with this defense is that one of the advantages we thought they had coming back in this pandemic-shortened training camp, odd schedule, is that it's a veteran football team.
Right.
What, they had 5 open spots pretty much for training camp? Very few.
Right.
Everyone that's here now was here last year. They've gone through the wars. They were successful last year. Take the next step. They should be able to handle going into a weird football season where you haven't had a lot of on-the-field time. But they've looked exactly the opposite, like a team that hasn't come out of the gate, that they're still asleep, kind of sleepwalking a little bit. I mean, I think it's just, it baffles me that this team with so much experience, with so much expectation, has not played up to that level. But you hope the light goes on eventually.
Unlike the 2009 championship team where they didn't eat the cheese, right?
No.
Week to week, you knew, again, they were a very good team. They didn't buy into
Eric,
it.
the reason why back then, because 06, 07, 08, they were terrible.
They were.
7 and 9, I mean, they were terrible football teams. So you had no expectations then,
Now, this team, I think, reads the social media headlines too much. I think they buy into how people are patting them on the back, and I think they came into this season buying into the narrative. Hey, we're a veteran team. We got this. We have no changeover in terms of the coaching staff, with the exception of one. We're going to be just fine. Well, you know what? Once you hit the field, you got to be able to execute, and they have not been able to execute, and a lot of that is undisciplined play on both sides of the ball, but especially on the defensive side. The other thing that has really been strange is normally the leaders on this team, the better players, the stars on this team carry this team. It's been the stars in a lot of cases that again have been making the mistakes over and over again that have cost this team.
DeMario Davis jumping off sides, Janoris Jenkins having a couple DPIs, Marshawn Lattimore not playing up to the shutdown corner that we want him to be. Maybe he's not quite there. Cam Jordan has been non-existent in this defense. But I think what happens is I think these guys recognize that one, I'm a leader. I've got to set the example here. And two, I haven't done crap yet. I've got to pick my game up.
Yes.
Especially Cam Jordan. I would think that he's going to come around. It's not like this is the first time he's seen double teams.
Right. It's all the time.
It's all the time. So he's just not playing as well as Cam Jordan usually plays. I think that part will turn around.
Well, the good thing was that, again, this week on the Rich Eisen show, Cam Jordan appeared on that show, and he took total responsibility for what's happening here, which is what a leader does. Took responsibility for his bad play. I mean, two false start penalties on him. I mean, that's unheard of. And of course, also took responsibility for the way the defense is playing as well, the undisciplined play. That is the first step. When your leaders are the ones that are coming out and saying, hey, I'm not playing the way I should be playing, but we all have to step up and play, again, smarter football. That's all. They have the talent. They have to play more disciplined football at this point. With that said, The linebacker position is really scary right now, Juan. I mean, again, right now they're not even using the Sam linebacker. When you look at Ellis and Bond, the rookie coming in, they've gone to more nickel and dime. Anzalone is not the physical player that A.J. Klein was last year. You see it. Okay, there's a drop off there. Demario Davis is all world, but he's got to do it all. They have not been able to cover the tight end. They've been fooled by the bootleg, and they really don't have a player on the field right now in that secondary when they go to a nickel or dime that can really cover the tight end. You could talk about maybe Malcolm Jenkins, but that's not at this point in his career. The coverage skills have eroded. And then you look at Gardner Johnson, he's just not big enough. That is going to be an Achilles heel going forward. They tried to get Jamie Collins in the offseason. He ended up signing with Detroit. That would have been the prototype linebacker they were looking for. Unfortunately, they weren't able to get it in free agency or in the draft. That's something that they're going to have to mask all season long. That's on Dennis Allen.
And they're going to see a lot of Jamie Collins this Sunday, right? Because all the teams see the film, and they're going to see where the Saints have their struggles on defense and covering the tight end. I mean, let's go back to the Raiders game. I mean, they couldn't make an adjustment to save their lives. They put everybody in the kitchen sink on their tight end there, and they could not get a stop. I just think that, this is the way this defense has been pretty much for as long as Dennis Allen's been back here. They've always resorted to having that safety come down into the box, play like a linebacker, whether it be Malcolm Jenkins or whoever it was before him. Roman Harper used to do it when he was here back in the day. And they like to play that way. They want to get as many DBs on the field as possible. And I get it because that's the way the offenses have been playing now. They're playing 4 wide most of the time. And you also got to cover an athletic wide receiver type tight end now. So, yeah, they're going to continue to struggle. But you almost have to kind of pick your poison with how you're going to play defense and say, let's hope that Malcolm Jenkins can play up to the level that we need him to play against these great tight ends, because again, the NFL, the game is just changing so much. When you're coming out of college as a tight end, it's no longer specialty tight end. Oh, he can block, and we can have this guy on the field because he can catch. You got to be able to do it all. Right. And that's just the way the game is.
And they're more athletic, as we were talking about before the show started, than we've ever seen. It used to be the tight end was a glorified tackle. Now it's a guy that was once a wide receiver who's physical, who can block, who can now again catch and run routes like a wide receiver. So you got to be able to counteract that in a lot of cases with either a linebacker or a safety who can cover. And right now, that's kind of an Achilles heel for this team.
You think about when Jimmy Graham came to this team, and we all made such a big deal. Oh my God, you got this basketball player who's is a football player. Now that's the norm.
Yes, it is.
I mean, he's no longer just like, oh my God, that's one out of 100 guys. No, that's the way that's coming out of college now. That's what you have to find in college, a guy that can block, catch, run, everything. And if you find one, you hang on to him.
Right. Well, that's what they did this year in Troutman. I mean, again, that's what and again, look, he may see a lot more time now with the groin injury to Cook. By the way, you mentioned the injuries. Of course, as we are taping this program, we don't know what the Thursday injury report is, but based on yesterday, Andres Pete with a high ankle sprain, he may be out for a while. But again, there didn't seem like a lot of drop-off when Easton and Ruiz went in. Matter of fact, I felt like Breeze felt a little bit more comfortable what was going on there. Maybe that was just, in the moment. We'll see how that plays out. Janoris Jenkins was out with an illness. We'll see how that plays out. Expect him to play. But here are the big ones. Really good chance Michael Thomas will play on Sunday, which is going to be huge for the offense. But also, Marcus Davenport coming back.
We'll see.
Okay? I mean, look.
I'll believe it when I see him on the field.
That is one that again, is just head-scratching. 2 number 1 picks. Every year injured, always trying. There's always an excuse. Elbow, this time around. He's got to be on the field. He's got to be able to give the Saints something there. And another guy, again, that was injured last week, maybe is underrated for this team is David Onyamata, what he does in the middle. Those guys get back, then all of a sudden you're looking at a much better defense, and it's harder at that point to be able to double team Cam Jordan when you can keep somebody fresh on the opposite side that can rush the passer. Henderson has done a nice job.
Hendrickson has been good. Granderson's done a really good job. And I think we've seen more of Hendrickson. He's kind of flashed more in these first 3 weeks, but he's given you some pretty good reps on that side. But, when the season began and when last season began and the year before that, we kept saying, who's going to be the guy opposite of Cam Jordan?
Still looking.
And we're still trying to figure that out. But we're also trying to figure out who's going to be the guy opposite of Trey Henderson, because Cam Jordan hasn't been there, not like himself. We think he'll come back. But I think their front has done a really good job. They are still playing very well against the run, as well as you can ask them to. Still no 100-yard rushers for the longest time. But I would like to see them maybe get to the quarterback a little bit more.
That's been the issue. The inability to be able to create pressure with down linemen, which again puts a lot more pressure on the back end, the ability to be able to cover. And we saw when the Saints were really on high throttling last year on defense. They were able to put pressure with 4 down linemen, and then Allen could pick and choose where he wanted to blitz from. Yeah. And again, we haven't seen that luxury this year.
You hope that returns with Marcus Davenport if he can get back on the field.
Well, and again, look, he's got to quit playing down to the competition. Let's just say, I almost want to say that they need to hypnotize him and say you're going against Mike Evans and Julio Jones every week, because he gets up for those players. He cannot play down to the competition, and he has a horrible habit of doing that. And look, that's just not the best.
Talking about Lattimore?
Talking about Lattimore.
Okay.
That just, you can't do that in the NFL and be considered one of the top corners in the game.
But you know what, Eric? I would say this. He recognizes that he's doing that, and that's a good thing. And the question is, how can you take that recognition and carry it over to the next week and say, you know what, I need to be better than what I was before, because this is what happened. You know, it's like hitting your head against the wall. Right. The definition of insanity over and over again. If he keeps doing it over and over again, then there's a problem there. You got to start recognizing what the problem is and change.
Right.
And change that approach. And if he doesn't do that, then you got to start looking for another cornerback in the draft or maybe in free agency.
They're all getting paid, right? I mean, all these wide receivers are getting paid. They're all professionals. And you can't, just because you see a certain, a number or name on the back of the jersey, you're going to get up because of, again, what that guy is perceived to be. Because anybody get beat at any time in the NFL. The other part of this, Juan, but before we take a break and move on to LSU, is really, and LSU and the Saints are both dealing with this. They've both been hurt by COVID-19 in terms of not having the crowds. I talked about this on the radio show and this show before the season started, that I thought that the Saints and LSU would be affected by this because the ravenous fans that we have here, because both stadiums are full, and especially when you talk about the dome, how they affect the defense. You look at Aaron Rodgers, you look at even Tom Brady in the first week. These guys are calling out their signals. The crowd is, and there's nothing. And you could see, and then the energizing, the emotion of both stadiums, getting the players energized. Also, I think we're seeing that has hurt both of these teams. I'm not saying it's not hurt other places in the NFL, but there is a true home field advantage in New Orleans and in Baton Rouge for those two teams.
You can listen to the sound bites from both coaches from the games that the Saints have lost. You can listen to the sound bite from the coach from Mississippi State after they beat LSU. Mm-hmm. And the one thing that's in common is they said, you know what, it's a lot easier playing at these places when there's not 70,000 fans at the Superdome and there's not 100,000 fans in Tiger Stadium.
Yes.
It's a lot easier on my players to play in a quiet atmosphere than it is to play with this house when it's a nut house and it's just crazy and loud. And listen, Sean Vazan and I will go back and forth on this. He doesn't seem to think, and I don't think Chris Hagan thinks that the crowd makes that big of a difference.
Right.
I am on the other end. I think it makes a huge difference because all these false starts that are happening, all these jumping off sides are happening.
Lack of communication is the biggest issue.
Yeah, I think it doesn't happen as much if the crowd's going crazy and Brett Favre's trying to get the guys jump off side because they don't hear it as quick. I think everything's echoed inside that dome now.
Yeah. And then the emotion of it, again, for a play like Breeze or even on the offensive side, when you're playing well, you see the emotion getting these players up.
Especially on defense.
And so that I think is an issue. With that said, and look, I know we're telling the truth here, okay? This is not, we're not going to come here and do and sugarcoat what's going on. We're telling you the truth. I don't think by any sense of the imagination, the season is over.
No, of course not.
It's 1-2. They're going to work. I think they'll work their way out of this. But again, the next two games are critical. Okay, Detroit and the Los Angeles Chargers. These are two must-wins for you.
Well, Detroit, Chargers, the Panthers after that, I believe. Sure. And then, of course, Tom Brady comes around once again.
That's right.
It will be a much more difficult game against Tom Brady and the Bucs next time around because they will have gotten that rhythm. I mean, they look like they're in rhythm now after 3 games.
Yes.
It took them a little bit because, and I'm not going to use the excuse for the Saints and say, you know what, they didn't have any time together. They missed having the preseason games. 32 teams.
Everybody
missed all that.
That's right.
It's how you handle going forward. I think this team will be fine. I think they'll bounce back. Right. But again, these next 3 games are crucial. If they can't sweep all 3, then you've got some problems, and it may be 500 football.
It's hard to dig out of a hole.
We've seen this team in the past.
Right.
When they fall to 1-3, Sean Payton coach teams have not gotten out of that hole in the past.
If I'm not mistaken, noon kickoff, Fox 8, right?
Yes.
With the Lions.
Yep.
What's going to happen on Sunday?
Fox 8 Live Tailgate. Get you ready for an hour-long pregame show from 10 to 11. Game kicks off at noon. We'll wrap everything up on the final play that night at 10:30. So
I think the Saints win this weekend. Do you?
I think it's close.
Really?
Because I think Matthew Stafford balances out the quarterback situation.
Right.
He overall is not as good a quarterback as Drew Brees, but playing at home, I think the Saints win only because there's no home field advantage for the Lions playing in Detroit. They don't have any fans either.
The desperate team normally wins, and I think the Saints are in desperation mode right now.
I think they're both desperate. I think you're right. I think the Saints are the more desperate team because they have the higher expectations on this football team coming into the season.
No doubt.
It's Super Bowl or bust with this football team because we're running out of time. We're on borrowed time with Brees.
Sports director at Fox 8 Sports, Juan Kincaid is our guest this evening. I'm Eric Asher. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. Let's hear from our underwriters. We'll come back. We'll talk LSU, Tulane. We'll talk about the Pelicans coaching search as well. Stick around.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Experiencing rough weather with a bad roof can be a nightmare. It doesn't have to be.
Suburban Roofing, because when it comes to roofing, there is a difference.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Tonight, our guest, Fox 8 Sports Director, Juan Kincaid. LSU, 44-24 loss to Mike Leach's air raid offense and the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Man, for a team that lost so many players, and we've talked about 6 undrafted free agents, 14 players drafted, then 3 defections. You really would have probably wanted to start off with Vandy week 1, then have to deal with Mississippi State, simply because it's a different type of offense than what you're used to. Any film you had on Mississippi State was 3 yards in a cloud of dust. All of a sudden now you're trying to find film on an air raid offense that Mike Leach is running, out on the West Coast. And look, bringing in a quarterback like KJ Costello, who is again a grad transfer, who again has got experience, again made all the difference in the world. I think the most surprising thing was the play of the defense on Saturday. I think a lot of people expected, myself included, this defense to play much better. And look, losing Stingley hurt, but I don't know if losing Derek Stingley Jr. would have made that much of a difference on Saturday. Let's start with the defense first. Your take on what happened with Bo Pelini and his defense.
Derek Stingley would have helped on one side,
right?
But Derek Stingley can't cover every guy coming across in the crossing pattern. You've got to have better discipline on the back end, bottom line. And LSU got picked apart by KJ Costello and that Mississippi State offense, and that coach who knows what he wants to do offensively. He wants to throw the ball. He has the plays he wants to run, and LSU had no answers for it. But and Sean Vazan and I talk about this. It was the same play almost every time, up, coming across. And if you watch LSU's defense, the cornerback that would have him coming across, he'd let him go, push him off, but there was no one there to push him off to. And by the time everyone reacted to what was happening, the guy's already 20 yards down the field. Just a really poor defensive effort. But what bothered me the most, and I say this the same about the Saints game against Green Bay and against Oakland, is that you see what they're doing, you have a halftime to make corrections defensively, and you don't. Bo Pelini, stubborn. I don't know what kind of conversation he had with Ed Ogeron at halftime, but I would imagine it would go something like, what are we doing wrong? How can we fix this in the second half and make corrections going forward?
Right.
Didn't look like any of that happened in the second half. It was the same old
Right.
for 60 minutes.
Right. No, 100% agree. If you can take something from the game, I would say that on both offense and defense, the lack of in-game adjustments were critical, and they just didn't happen. And look, you're coming from a guy named with Aranda who was constantly making in-game adjustments, to Pelini, who looked like he made no in-game adjustments. So again, almost a complete flip in terms of what we saw in terms of the defense. They have some talented players on this team. The problem is the players are very, very young and inexperienced. Yeah. And so there's going to be growing pains. There's no other way around it.
There are, but Nick Saban goes through it every year.
No, he does. It's true.
Urban Meyer went through it when he was at Ohio State.
Right.
Clemson goes through it every year. You're going to lose. The best programs are going to lose double-digit players to the NFL draft.
True.
You've got to find a way to have the balance of what's coming behind them is ready to play.
Yes.
And the program doesn't have. There's going to be a drop-off. Always going to be, no matter what team it is. But the drop-off can't be so substantial that all of a sudden you're dropping from 6th ranked to 20th in the country because you look that bad on Saturday. They've got to play better. As simple as that. It really is as simple as that. But when you score 34 points, you should win a football game.
You should win. No, there's no doubt. And look, to your point, I agree with you. But I think that based on the recruiting classes that we've seen with Ogeron, that this might just be the anomaly here. That again, if from this point forward, if he continues to recruit as strongly as he has, I don't think we'll see the drop-off like we've seen when you lose those players to the draft. Because look, I think you go into a situation on LSU and Alabama and an Ohio State that thinking that I'm not keeping a kid longer than 3 years, okay? And if the kid is a redshirt sophomore, more than likely he's going as well if he's ready for the NFL. So I think you recruit that way and you look at the team that way. Unfortunately, again, there was a huge amount of exodus on this team. And even, again, I think the late departures hurt them as well. Yeah. When you have Shelvin in your practices, when you have Kerry Vincent, and of course Chase, who was there till late, and then they opt out late, then you're asking young players to be able to come in and step in and take more of a more prominent role where that wasn't the expectations. Not making an excuse for the team. I thought the coaching
was what it is.
Right.
I mean, that's what it is.
It is. There's no doubt. The coaching needed to be better on Saturday. There's no doubt about that. But they're going to have to get this thing fixed because film. Across the board, teams will look at this and they'll say they can test this secondary. But I thought there was some really good moments on this team in terms of how some of the players that emerged. I thought Ali Gay played well. Yeah. Jabril Cox played well. I thought they missed Glenn Logan, who again was suspended and is probably going to be out for this next game as well. But I thought there were certain players, newcomers that you saw that you went, okay, these guys can play ball.
Yeah, but I think Bo Pelini let them down a little bit in that they wanted to blitz with the linebacker. Jabril Cox got the blitz. And so, but you see what Mississippi State's doing when he leaves that spot. That got crossing routes right there. It's wide open. Right. Bo Pelini has got to be a better play caller on defense, just like Sean Payton's got to be better play caller for the Saints offense. He's got to recognize what teams are doing. I know he was at Youngstown State. He's not seeing Mississippi State's offense at Youngstown State. And it's been a while since he was at Nebraska and back at LSU. Maybe he needed a game to kind of get into the rhythm and see, okay, I got to be a better play caller because he has to be better. Yes. He has to put the guys in a position to make plays and to be able to make plays.
Can't give up 623 yards passing and 5 touchdowns.
They were great against the run.
Right. No.
But Mississippi State didn't need to run.
They didn't need to run. They threw it well. On the offensive side of the ball.
Let me ask you a quick question. Sure. Was there ever a time in that game after LSU scored you thought, okay, that's not going to last long? No. I mean,
no. And what, if anything, it was the reverse roles. Is what the first thing I thought was Mississippi State and KJ Costello looks like LSU and Joe Burrow last year, okay? And LSU looks like Mississippi State on your heels, again, unable to stop and again not comfortable with what's going on. On the offensive side of the ball, the offensive line I thought again left a lot to be desired, especially on the tackles. I mean, it'll be a work in progress, but Miles Brennan looked like a guy that hadn't played since St. Stanislaus. A lot of guys were open. He wasn't trusting his eyes, getting the ball out. Your synopsis of what you saw on offense.
I will give him a pass because I thought his numbers were good.
Yes.
I thought he played well enough for this team to win a football game. If your defense doesn't give up 44 points, you're winning your first game and you're saying, okay, we made some mistakes here, but we scored 34 points and we should be okay. Where I say he needs to get better, get the ball out of his hands more, recognition where the blitz is coming from. But these are things, Eric, he can't learn being a backup. He couldn't learn coming in for Joe Burrow and mop-up time when the game's already decided because you're up by 30 points. These are things he's going to have to learn on the fly here as a first-time, full-time starter.
Yes.
And I think he will. I think he's a good quarterback, good football player. How good of a quarterback is he? I'm of the belief that I think he's just an okay quarterback because I look at the competition he played against in high school. And the one time he played 5A competitions when he came to play against Brother Martin in City Park, and he got his butt kicked. That one game does not make a quarterback and who he is, but I still haven't seen him play top-notch competition on a consistent basis. I want to see that. I think he can sling it. I really do. But there's so much more to playing the position than just throwing the ball down the field. Recognition of what's going on around you, getting guys in and out of the huddle, recognizing the talent, where do you go with the ball? These are things that will come in time, but will come as he gets more experience in the game.
But the problem is you don't have a lot of time.
You don't.
You're playing a 10-game SEC schedule, which is a gauntlet no matter what, and there is no break. There are no cupcakes on this schedule when you say, you're going to play, a 1AA team. That's not happening. You're not going to be able to get kind of your feet under you've been thrown to the fire. Should be maybe a little easier this week against Vandy, but again, look, we don't know because of COVID-19. We have no idea what's going to happen week to week when it comes to football. But I can say one thing: Von Rosenberg can't be the best player on your team as the punter. He can't be the biggest weapon, okay? And he was.
And they've got to figure out their running back situation too.
I agree.
I mean, is 3 better than 1?
Right. Well, I don't have a problem with them utilizing the 3 backs, but I think that they can help Brennan more by running the football. Okay, much like we talked about with the Saints, running the football. I think everybody wants to see that offense we saw last year with Joe Burrow, but I don't know if you can play that offense with Joe Burrow that you had last year with Joe Burrow now.
Well, you can't because you don't have the same receivers.
Right.
I mean, Jamar Chase not there, Justin Jefferson not there. I mean, those were 2 of the best receivers in the country, by hands down. You don't have that, and so. You don't have your offensive line. 4 of the 5 starters are gone. I mean, there are things you don't have from last year, no matter how much you try to replace them with incoming freshmen, backup players. You've got a guy that played in the Ivy League last year playing center.
Right.
He may be a good player in the Ivy League, but this is the SEC. It's a different level.
Right.
Is he just an average player there? So I think we have to temper our expectations to this LSU football team.
Right.
I mean, I think everybody wants to say, okay, they could go and defend their championship. Easier said than done if you've got an experienced team coming back.
Right.
But when you've got so many players that are not with this team anymore.
Yes.
Be realistic about it.
You have to, because you have to look at, again, the amount of plays, and I'm talking about plays in big games that these players have played in. If anything, I'm disappointed in the safeties. Todd Harris and Jacoby Stevens both played last year. That missed tackle on the sideline by Todd Harris was a game changer for this team. Okay, you can't have it. And if anything, it's much like we're talking about the Saints. Your veteran players, your leaders have to step up, and they have to play at a high level, and then the other guys will follow suit. But again, much like we talked about the Saints, it's on the coaching as well. They got to be able to do in-game adjustments, and we didn't see it last week. Well, good news for Tulane after getting embarrassed by Navy the week before. They look like they found themselves a quarterback. Michael Pratt comes in at the 3rd series for Keon Howard, who again was shaky in terms of his accuracy. 8 for 18, 142 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interception. And you say to yourself, wow, those are not gaudy numbers. No, they're not, but he was able to deliver the ball accurately, and I think it uplifted the entire team by seeing that.
Well, it did, and because you finally got yourself a guy, and I'm kind of sad for Keon Howard because he was going against his old team.
Yes.
You know he wanted to have a good performance in that, but the hook was very short.
Right.
And
as it should be.
And Willie Fritz had no choice.
Right.
You can't go down this same road again. When you look back at the game against Navy, you should have pulled Howard then, but you said because of the rain you didn't. Navy pulled theirs.
Right.
And what happened? They won the game. But I think Willie Fritz, he had to have a short leash because Tulane is at a point now under Fritz. They have to start winning the games they're supposed to win and then start being competitive and winning some games that were kind of iffy games last year, like a Memphis or something like that. They've got to start showing a different level of play with this football program. Again, we're trying to get fans in the stands here. Once they open the stands back up again, you got to give them something to be excited about. I think Michael Pratt gave this program something to be excited about, but their running game has been solid since Willie Fritz has been here, and maybe they have the best running back triplet or whatever that they've ever had since he's been there. It's fantastic to watch. Every guy, and they lost Tajay. They lost him. Didn't lose a 430 yards rushing, something like that.
Again, to your point, Spears gets the knee injury. Hopefully he's able to come back.
so.
But Carroll comes in, 15 carries, 163 yards, 3 touchdowns. Hudson, who's been kind of forgotten, 11 carries, 120 yards, a touchdown. To your point, physical running game. And honestly, that to me is the quarterback's best friend. And it did help Pratt going along. Also on the, they also showed they got some talent at wide receiver. Yeah. The Watts brothers, and Johnson, everybody looked like, again, once they had a chance to be able to get an accurate pass thrown to them, they were able to be able to get yards after catch. They showed that. And lo and behold, the offensive line, which was much maligned the first couple of weeks, played much better when Pratt got in the game. Again, film being a great equalizer. I know that teams are going to be looking at Pratt, what he does, what he doesn't. They're going to try to confuse the kid. But the first time out, you saw him uplift the entire team.
Yeah, but I will say this. How bad is Southern Miss? How far has that program fallen since Larry Fedora?
Yes.
It's really sad to see. But having said that, you still got to beat the teams you have to play. And Tulane, they started slow and then put up 60.
Right.
Second quarter on. It was a fun thing to watch from this program that's been having so many questions about, can our quarterback complete a 5-yard pass? For me, I was much happier to see Pratt complete a 5-yard out or crossing pattern than I was to see him throw a ball 40 yards down the field for a completion, because the majority of the plays they're going to call are those underneath plays. I need you to be consistent hitting the screen pass. Be consistent hitting a quick little 5-yard slant. Those are things Keon Howard couldn't do, so defenses realize this guy can't complete a pass. We have an advantage here. So it's good to see Pratt do well. You got to take it with a grain of salt, though. Southern Miss is not a very good football team.
It's one game.
It's one game. It's a positive one game.
Yes.
Southern Miss is not a good team. They're going to be better teams down the line, but you like the foundation you have there to build on.
And look, they're taking on their nemesis this next Thursday in Houston. So again, look, that's a step up in class for them. There's no doubt we find out a lot more about the team. But it was good to see the defense play well. Again, Jeffrey Johnson, also Patrick Johnson. You look at Cam Sample along the defensive line, what they were able to do. Nick Anderson had a great game at linebacker along with Mooney. And look, Monroe looks like he's a pretty good cornerback, for a team that traditionally Tulane has had pretty good cornerbacks that they've sent to the NFL. So all of a sudden you start looking at the 3 levels of the defense, and we were told before the season started that they had a chip on their shoulder. They didn't play well last year. They were expected to carry this team, and they didn't do it. That we were going to see a different defense. We didn't see it over really the first 2 weeks. We saw it week 3 against Southern Miss. Now, is that the opponent, or is that these guys gelling as a defense?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I would like to think it's probably them gelling, because we're 3 weeks into the season, and they know the eye spotlight's on them. I think coming into the season, there was a belief that this Tulane defense would be one of the strengths of the team. I think we're seeing that. I think of their cornerbacks in the past. Perry Nickerson's one guy that comes to mind. He's in the NFL. They've had a history of producing really good cornerbacks on this mid-major level that get to the NFL. It's a credit to the coaching staff and what the players they're bringing in. One thing that Willie Fritz has done since he's been there, the recruiting has gotten a lot better. They're one of the top recruiting teams in all of the American Conference's past recruiting season. That's becoming a benefit. People are recognizing that Tulane's getting better as a football program, that Willie Fritz has an idea of the kind of player he wants to and how he wants to play, and especially how he wants to play on defense. And I think we're starting to see it. This defense has gotten better. Again, part of it was the opponent against Southern Miss.
Agreed.
But you still have to go out there and do the job. And when you've got a 30-point lead, you know what the offense has to do. Pin your ears back and go get them. You're
even able to get Justin Ibieta in the game to get some snaps. Which again, now figuring that Howard is probably not going to be your guy going forward, you're going to have to get the other freshmen some snaps. We'll see how it goes. Look, it's tough starting a freshman in any type of Division I college football. There's going to be some ups and downs here. So we'll see how it kind of plays out. And maybe Howard has a chance to be able to come back down the line here. But the biggest problem with him is it's not his athletic ability. It's not his leadership ability. He's got all that. The problem is, as a quarterback, you got to be able to complete a pass accurately, and he just hasn't been able to do it consistently. It's one of the reasons why he's not at Southern Miss, and he sat at Tulane for so long. Shifting to the Pelicans, and really a lot to unpack here when it comes to the Pelicans, but we'll start with the coaching search first. This week, Doc Rivers, it was Mark Spears, New Orleans native from the undefeated, reported that the Pelicans had reached out to Doc Rivers to try to get an interview for their head coaching job, both Philadelphia and New Orleans. He's already interviewed with Philadelphia. There's a lot of talk about the possibility of maybe Tyronn Lue also being in the interview process. Jason Kidd has been mentioned prominently. Kenny Atkinson with his ties to Trajan Langdon, the former Nets coach, being on that with that organization. So those are some of the top coaches that are out there that are available that have had head coaching experience. There's some other assistants that are out there that may be considered. Wes Unseld Jr. from Denver, who is a defensive-minded coach, who is, again, going to be looked at by a lot of the teams that right now have vacancies. Charles Lee, the assistant from Milwaukee, who is more of an offensive-minded coach. Jamal Mosley from Dallas, again, a defensive-minded coach. Chris Finch right here in New Orleans. Look, it'd be nice to try to hold on to him going forward, and several members of that staff would be retained, hopefully. But again, you have to see how it goes when a new coach comes in. But again, he's more of an offensive-minded coach. And then Darvin Ham, the former NBA player from Milwaukee, more of a player development coach. I myself would like to be able to see an established former coach come in rather than an assistant. Someone that has won championships, that has won consistently in the NBA. It is a plus also if that is a former player that can be respected because they played the game before. So again, when you look at those guys right now, that's a Doc Rivers, Tyronn Lue, Jason Kidd. Not a big fan of Jason Kidd. Lue, I think, probably will take the Clippers job. We hear Rivers is looking at maybe either Houston or Philadelphia, but who knows? And Kenny Atkinson proved that he could take a group of players that were not highly heralded when he was in Brooklyn and turn those guys into a playoff team. What are the attributes you're looking for in a head coach?
Well, I think the first thing I would ask is what kind of head coach do we want here?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of do we want a guy that's X's and O's and get this team on the rim and can score points? Or do we want a guy that's more defensive minded? For me, I want a guy that can get this team to score some points.
Okay.
Because I think defense is overrated in the NBA.
Right.
It's about making runs. It's about being able to respond to what the other team has done. If they've gone on a 5-0 run, I want you to go on a 7-0 run. I need you to be able to respond. But I think you need to have someone on your staff, almost like Alvin Gentry did, that can focus on defense.
Right. Have a coordinator.
But I also would like my coach to have a little bit of knowledge about defense, because you saw when they couldn't take the defensive guy down to Orlando, this team fell apart.
Yes.
Because Alvin Gentry had no idea what he wanted to do defensively. I think I would like to have someone that has NBA head coaching experience. I don't need them to have won a championship, but I do need them to have been to the playoffs consistently.
Right.
The problem I had with Alvin Gentry when he first came here, and I said this to him in an interview, sitting down with him, people are going to look at your resume and say, okay, he made the playoffs at Phoenix, but what else has he done?
Right.
He was on Golden State's staff, won a championship, but he didn't lead that team. You could have won with that team, coaching that
Career
team
assistant
with Steph and Clay and those guys. He's been a career assistant, not a very successful head coach, except in Phoenix for 1 year. So don't be surprised with what he gives you here. So we should not be surprised with what he gave us as the Pelicans head coach. The next guy coming in here, I want them to have playoff winning experience.
Yes.
I don't need you to have won a championship, but I need you to be able to show me that you know what it takes to maybe get to one. You know, that you've had success in the first and second round. Right now, we have to be realistic about what this Pelicans team is. It's young, it's talented, a lot of upside, but they ain't been in the playoffs in a minute.
Right.
They don't know what it takes to get to the playoffs.
Especially
right
this
now.
group.
This group, that's what I'm talking about. They don't know what it takes to get to the playoffs. They've watched other teams get there and think, man, we should be in that position. Yeah, maybe so, but you got to do the right things and the work to get there. And this team has not been led down that path to be able to be in that position. So I think experience, offensive-minded, skins on the wall. I don't need to be a former player. I don't care about anything. It's overrated, because I think a guy can coach. And you think about Brad Stevens.
Oh yeah, no doubt. But again, he is
from college to the pros.
He's kind of an anomaly when you look at a guy that could be successful coming from a small college into the NBA. I take a different tack. I want a more defensive-minded coach, and because I think that the NBA is already an offensive league. The guys are going to score, but I think when you get into the playoffs and we see this, you got to be able to play defense.
Yes,
you got to.
A la Houston.
Right. If you don't play defense in the playoffs, you're not going to advance. So again, you got to have somebody that again has a defensive aptitude. Also, again, somebody that can build a culture. It's one of the reasons why when Doc Rivers' name came up, I was excited about Billy Donovan before he went with the Bulls.
That's who I would have liked to see again.
Who I went before he went to the Bulls. I mean, those guys build a culture. You have to build a culture. So when you look at that part, the other part of it is, again, when you start looking at some of these head coaches who have skins on the wall, who, when they're going into a program, they want some autonomy. I don't think they get that autonomy here in New Orleans with David Griffin. David Griffin is going to buy the groceries. He's going to cook the groceries. He'll let the coach serve the dinner, okay, at that point. And maybe Doc Rivers, from what we understand, he wants a little bit more control over the roster. I don't think that happens here in New Orleans. That's why, again, I think that we'll probably see somebody that Griffin feels comfortable with. It could be an assistant coach that comes in and starts, but I think you got to have somebody that is going to come in and going to immediately demand respect from the players. There's going to be a buy-in, and there's going to be a culture that is going to be built here that's going to be a winning culture that can take you to the championship. This might not be the guy that does it. Yeah. This might be the guy before the guy, but you got to get the culture built with the young players that you have on this team.
No, I do. I agree with that. And you have to also add a few more pieces to this roster because it's not complete.
I agree.
You need some more players. You need some more shooters on this roster. You need some more size, athletic size down low, which there's tons of guys out there to find right now when it comes to that. But Ty Lue is one of the guys that's been mentioned. There's a history between him and David Griffin back in Cleveland. But I look at Lue and say, okay, I see him as a player, and when he played back in the day, good player. I don't see him as much as a great coach because he had LeBron.
Right.
LeBron, if you had Jordan, you're going to win a championship. So how much of that was his good coaching? How much of was it LeBron taking charge of things on the court and saying, follow me, I'll lead you to a championship, and that's what happened. I don't know if Tyronn Lue, in my opinion, is the guy that would command the most respect from the players here, because I think they're going to look at it the same way and say, well, he won with LeBron. Right. It's like looking at Steve Kerr, and Steve Kerr is a great coach, but would Steve Kerr be a great coach in Charlotte or in Brooklyn or with the Knicks? He's got the pieces there. Right. Now, you still got to make it work.
Sure.
So, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I thought we would have heard something by now in terms of some candidates coming down the pipeline, but I'd like to think they're doing their due diligence, but also I believe money's a factor. I think a guy like Doc Rivers is going to command a high salary.
Yes, he will.
I think a guy like Ty Lue may command a second level high salary. You got $5 million committed to Alvin Gentry. Do you mind paying another $5 to $7 million for the coach that everyone wants, that you want, that has other options? Will you make that move? Will Gail Benson make that move? I don't know.
Well, she's proven up to this point she's willing to spend the money. She has an open checkbook for David Griffin. I'm one that thinks that I don't think money's going to be an option here. I do want to ask, we've got a minute left. There's been a lot of speculation. Drew Holiday may be moved in the offseason. J.J. Redick may be moved in the offseason to a contender. Your thoughts?
I'd like to see J.J. Redick stay here. Drew Holiday, I could see them moving him, but you got to get the right pieces back in return. If you can get yourself some good size, athletic size down low, and you can get yourself a good shooter, get yourself a high first-round pick. I think Drew is worth that.
Right.
I think he's a quality basketball player. But what I don't like about Drew is that I don't like him when he's in that point guard role. I would rather see them move Lonzo Ball.
Right, and it may happen.
Let's see that and see what you can get back for that, because I think he's more of a liability as a point guard than he is an asset for this basketball team. They've got a lot of questions they got to get answered between now and when the season starts back up after Christmas or for the first part of the year.
I would say this, the team that they ended with this year, don't think that's going to be the nucleus of the team that again, you'll see in a few years from now that you hope will be competing for a championship. I think there's a lot of moving parts here. There are some, they're very top-heavy at guard, so I think you're going to see some changes going forward.
They got to figure out Zion Williamson. They've got to help him develop more of his game, not just going to the basket.
I agree.
If he can't start knocking down 15-footers from the elbow, he's going to struggle as a player. He's going to give you 20 points, but it's all going to be at the rim, and he needs to be able to do more. Teams are going to start defending that.
I definitely agree. Juan Kincaid, thanks so much for being with us tonight. That's Juan Kincaid, sports director over at Fox 8 Sports. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there's a rebroadcast of this program each and every Friday night right here on WLAE-TV at 10 p.m. Also, you can catch us on The Deuce, WLAE-TV 2. That is tonight, Thursday night at 10 p.m. Also on Saturday mornings at 2 a.m. if you're a night owl. You can catch us on Pelican Sports Television, 9 o'clock on Fridays, and also 5 p.m. on Saturdays. So a lot of ways to catch the show. And also the WLAE-TV YouTube page and at ericasher.com. You can catch me on the radio at 106.1 FM. That is 5 to 7 weekdays. You can listen live at ericasher.com. Also, the TuneIn Radio app, as well as the iHeartRadio app, is another way to catch the program. Also, I want to thank our underwriters who make this show possible. Also, to, again, the great staff here at WLAE-TV, Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, also Tommy Fairley, Tommy O'Connor. Special thanks to Juan Kincaid for joining us in the program. And, of course, my director, William Hill. Thanks so much for watching. My name is Eric Asher. We'll see you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports.